And we'll let you say a real detector.
Alrighty then, we are back. We got a few people coming in. That's awesome. It's been 2 weeks off. Holy shit! I always forget to do, but it was so nice seeing everyone again. We got Ryan and Carson. Nice. So tonight, guys, we are going to be talking about dowsing. We're going to talk a little bit about history and the uses and if it works or not. And, in our opinion, we might fight her. I don't know. Who knows what'll happen? We'll see. We're going to drink and we're going to discuss. So, Bob's in the house. Kelly's in the house. Kelly from the UK. She's from over the pond. So I'll just to start. I mean, I did some research today. I did some research yesterday, getting into it, looking up different studies by different people, and some of them I found. I came across a few. Like the earliest one is from 1917, and that was from the United States Geological Survey from the Department of the Interior, and basically, I mean, it looks like the history goes back to early 1500s from Germany. That's what I was finding, like 1500 something, as early as I saw it being written about in different books. And I was coming across a few of them where they wrote about them. They were translated to English. I think they were all in German, or I think there was a French one that I was reading or trying to read because I don't read French. So, but it looks like most of these older manuals or books that were written about it, they didn't look favorably on the technique. They described it. They gave you a full description. They said what the guys were doing, and basically, they were taking a twig. And I love that they kept calling it a twig. And I'm pretty sure, like at the time, that was the proper term. But like hearing it now, it almost sounds like, yeah, they were just using a twig. Big deal. But they were using a fork-shaped rod, fork-shaped twig, which was freshly cut. I believe it was there was a couple different kinds of wood that they were using. I don't have it in front of me, but basically they would use it to walk around and try to find different things. And originally it was being used by miners. They were looking for new veins to open up. And so not necessarily water at first, but it looked like they were looking for ore and different minerals. And then eventually it went into water, and then eventually it morphed into hidden treasures, your lost card keys, pretty much anything that you were lost. And I also saw mentions of it would answer your questions. And I forget exactly. I think it was one of these reports from like 1928, I think, that I was reading. And this was in and I'll have to find it, but it was in a journal. Where was it? Hold on a second. Let me get my glasses so I can actually see what I'm doing here. But it was the annual report from the Smithsonian Institute, and I think they were describing that it would also answer any questions you have. Although they didn't mention ghosts. They didn't say anything about ghosts or spirits, just that the rods themselves would answer your questions. All the way up to modern times, where now I go to paranormal conventions, and you can talk to aliens, you can talk to ghosts, you can sometimes talk to Bigfoot, what have you, and it's there you go. It's pretty much dowsing. You can find it or talk to anything and go from there. So I'll go around the room. I think I'm going to pick on Tim. Oh, look at that! I did it right.
Nice.
Look at that.
Oh,
He's looking for foxtails. So yeah, I kind of went with the whole thing of like why people believe dowsing works. So I was again kind of taken back with, or not taken back with, but rather taken by like what's the belief of it? Like why do people look for that to still answer questions? Pretty much it just comes right back to superstitious behavior and B.F. Skinner and the rat box and the pigeon box, and it looks like hard times lead to looking for any solution you can. So during droughts, during major droughts, during any time that you've lost sources of water, for a long time, that was a big agricultural society in many parts of the world. And when the water's out, that's your livelihood, if not only for money, but for many people at the time, it was how they live. So if you can't find the water, you find somebody who can, and somebody that can easily come along with a twig and say, yeah, for a couple eggs and a chicken, I'll walk across your farm and find your water for you. So typically, going kind of into the same thing that USGA, I think I kind of sent a quote to you guys about how they said, basically any part of the world that has an adequate or normal amount of rainfall, even in a dry part of the season, will have water underneath the table. And the question is, not will you find water, but if you want to get really specific and impressive, you'll be able to predict how well the water is going to flow, how many gallons per minute, the quality of the water, and how deep you actually have to go to get to the good water. So there's actually several layers of flowing water. I didn't know this until I started reading, but there's actually several layers of flowing water in different parts of the rock, and some are better than the others, and you can dig down to really good water. So finding water doesn't seem to be a problem. It's not the matter of finding, it's just how deep you have to go. So
cool. Dave, what do you got for opening?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's long history, obviously. I thought this part was interesting where they talk about, dowsers appeared engraved on ancient Egyptian stonework and on the statue of a Chinese emperor dating from around 2200 BC. So it's like, wow, went way back practicing this technique of dowsing. Then I read a little bit of some of the studies. That was interesting. And I think pretty much all of them, except maybe one, showed negative results. So then I dove into why people think it works, why they believe it works, what could be the possible mechanisms of it working. And I think that's what I'll try to get into tonight a little bit, since I kind of went down that rabbit hole and looked into some of those areas. So it'll be interesting. I think most of it, you're going to find that if you do a well controlled study where you take away cues in the environment, people don't do well at all with it. I find it interesting that it's been used, as you both said, for a variety of different things, but they've also used dowsers to find archaeological sites. There's also remote dowsers or map dowsers that they'll look at a map and douse on a map. So I'm like, okay, well, how the hell is that any different than remote viewing or trying to pick up things? So there gets to be some overlap in some other areas and topics as well. So it was pretty interesting. And to me, trying to understand why people think it works and possible mechanisms, and then the reasons why the studies fail when you properly control them. That was where I found my interest taking me on this topic.
That's interesting with the remote dowsing, because it made me immediately think of when I went to Lilydale, and Lilydale is like a spiritualist community, and you can go through, and all the tiny little like shore homes, they're like sheds to us.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go and sign up, but for like your time slot, you can show up, but they did a lot of remote psychic readings. So you would be on the phone and just talk to them, and they would do all your stuff over the phone. It immediately made me think of that. Like, oh, well, why do we have to go anywhere? We can just bring out a map and get your pendulum and, start dowsing for, whatever, hidden treasure and shit. So let me see. So there's a bunch of stuff. Like I said, they used it for mining, for looking for veins, for ore, water, oil, treasure, graves. When they wanted to look for graves, they would use it. And I have people that still come up to me at conventions and stuff and say they can do it, and it works perfectly every time. And I mean, I'm offering, like I always offer, like, all right, let's try it. Let's see what happens. We can set up a little test, a simple test, informal, but that's when it stops. Like, they don't want to be tested. So, I mean, take that how you want.
I hear you need to have the right equipment, though, Kenny.
Oh, I got the right equipment, Dave.
And when you do, just walk
Wait a minute.
Just walk away. Just walk away. So I did read in one of these things. Let me see. So in the 1947, this is the New Zealand Journal of Science and Technology. They're talking about diviners. And this was 1947. And they're talking about there's two methods of divining. And this is well before the rods. These are the twigs that they're using.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about there's two methods. There's a method of samples and a method of beets. And I did not know this before. This is something new to me. And it says in the method of samples, the diviner holds in his hand a sample of whatever he seeks in order to insulate him against rays, like RAYS, rays from all other substances. Divinability is claimed to be due to the emission by the substance of rays, which may be located by the diviner vertically above the substance. Doesn't tell you what kind of rays.
Energy rays.
And rays. It just tells you there's some kind of rays that emit from these objects, and if you hold the same kind of object in your hand, then you can do it.
Right.
And then
I guess how different is that from just traditional psychrometry then?
I don't know.
With like a GPS unit attached to it.
The other method is a method of beets, where each element causes in the rod a definite number of beats or movements. These may be positive, involving an upward movement of the rod, or a negative, involving a downward movement. So those are the two ways. It goes on to say the diviner claims that he becomes charged with rays, which cause definite beats in the rods. Again, it goes to rays, but I didn't read anything that actually explained what these rays are supposed to be. But those are the two methods when you use a twig. I can't help but laugh when I say twig. I don't know why. That people use. I guess that it. I guess as long as you're holding a sample of whatever you're looking for, whether it maybe I don't know if your hands are wet, maybe that's good enough to find water, or some kind of mineral. But again, I think at this time it was still used primarily for minerals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you guys think so far?
My first thought comes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'll make a quick comment. That doesn't explain shit. But go ahead, Tim.
I
was going that way, but a little longer. But yeah. Again, I came across that remote viewing. I guess it's like remote dowsing. I saw an article. I read an article in a psychology publication that went to a newspaper publication where a gentleman went out with a dowser in California, and before they even started, the dowser pulled out a map of this person's land and map dowsed, I guess is what it was, and it immediately reminded me of your remote viewing. And then I got into the I guess the Dowser the Dowsers.org organization, and was looking at the different type of dowsing. And an odd question is, I wonder how come I haven't heard more of location of bodies. I guess not to, it seems like that would be an area that a dowser would be able to assist if they could, or it looks like an area that somebody who wanted to do that or believed they could would volunteer into remote dowsing, I guess, for bodies and finding graves. It's interesting to me that I hear a lot of that with mediums, but in my readings with dowsing, and I read for a couple days, so there might be plenty of examples of people dowsing for shallow graves or bodies that are lost, but I didn't. It was just pretty interesting to me that it wasn't there. I don't know, like I didn't find anything that was compelling that dowsing had any validity to it.
Question back for you is, what kind of maps are they using? I mean, because if certain types of maps have a hell of a lot of information on them.
Yes,
and let's say you look at a map and you're dowsing for water, you're going to see certain vegetation, land type that's going to cue you in that there might be water there.
Right.
Certain terrains, certain elevations, peaks, valleys. There's things you could note on that map that could cue you in on where it might be.
Right.
Well, this particular dowser in the article took several classes. I think this person had studied geography and geology at a local university.
Uh-oh. Tim froze.
Tim
froze. That's a great look for him, though.
That is. That's the look he has before he gets vickered by the internet.
We'll just leave that up there.
Oh, here I go. I'll send him a
what
message and tell him. I'm sure he knows, but
yeah,
I'll send him a message.
I get what he's saying, though, because I mean, a useful. Yeah, I understand. Like, finding water is definitely useful, especially when you're drilling for a well or pipes or what have you. But there he is.
There he is. He's back.
I'm like, I still hear you guys. I'm like, am I going? Am I back?
You're back.
But I totally agree. Like, one of the most useful uses would be to find missing persons, or
find them how, though? I mean, you would have to have an area to search.
I guess bodies.
It doesn't really lead you to. I mean, dowsing doesn't lead you to, like, you don't start on your house and then they kind of guide you down the road.
Right. I guess it would be more of a hey, this is the area we think like a body is in, and that would be a useful thing. But I don't see anything. I mean, when I read through just these reports that I have here, and in other studies or just testing, it all came back. And I think, Dave, you said it too. Like, it all came back negative. Like, there was just no positive results. And even there was one. What did I read? I was reading one where it was a test done, I think, in the 70s, where they took, I think, like 47 out of 500 dowsers of, like, the best dowsers that had the best scores, and they tested them and retested them. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to print that out, but they tested them, and at one point for one test, there were like 7 that did pretty well. Like, they got really close, a little bit better than chance. But when compared to the rest of the tests that they did that same day, it dropped down. It wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't anything significant. And we're talking like the best dowsers that they could get. A similar test was done by James Randi, and that's written about in his book, The Flim Flam, where he took like the top dowsers of the country and tested them. And unfortunately, I want to make it clear, like the test that was performed was agreed upon by both parties.
Yep.
It wasn't just like, hey, you have to do this our way. Both parties signed off saying that this was a good test, and they failed. Every one of them failed, and these were like the top dowsers in the country that did this.
Is that the video I have with Richard Dawkins?
Is that the one in the tent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one. Randy did one outside where he actually had pipes. They buried pipes in the ground and had the dowsers had agreed to find the one that had running water in it, not just standing water, just the running water. So they had no idea where it was, and yeah, all of them did not successfully pass the test. So, but the one with the one Richard Dawkins does in the tent. Do you have that video?
Yeah.
We can play that.
Yeah, let's play that.
You want to play it?
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Well, let's hope my internet will hold out.
Yeah. Damn West Virginia internet.
Damn West Virginia. You have no idea, brother.
The so-called evidence for psychic phenomena is not robust, but will-o'-the-wisp. The more we look at it, the weaker it becomes. The alleged detection of water through dowsing is not obviously ridiculous. It might work, but does it? The only way to tell is through a rigorous experiment.
How does dowsing work? That's the #1 question, and nobody can answer you. Well, I reckon I'm convinced that something is helping me to dowse. One of the earlier chaps thinks it's God.
How do you do it then? What's your principle of dowsing?
I think the question, and I expect God to respond in the way that I understand. I'm going to expect the right-hand one to point to the camera and the left-hand one straight forward.
Yeah, okay.
Look, it's following round.
Yeah. And have you done the test yet in the tent?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and what was the result?
I was going to get 6 right, 100%.
Yeah, and what happened?
1.
So what do you make of that then?
He's having his laugh, isn't he? He loves a joke. Yes. You don't realise.
Do I get second goes at it?
Oh, yeah, you can have as many.
The psychologist Chris French thinks there may be a simpler explanation. He has devoted his career to investigating claims of the paranormal. And now he has set up this test for dowsing, a properly controlled double-blind trial. In each of these rows, just one container, chosen at random, holds a bottle of water. All the rest contain sand. Neither the dowsers nor the tester are allowed to know where the water is until the boxes are opened. So there are no unintentional giveaways.
Have another go.
Safeguards like this make the double-blind trial one of the crowning achievements of scientific reason.
Okay, put it on the end one then.
Number 6 again.
I'd say so.
Okay.
Right. What you'll typically find when you talk to dowsers is they'll give you lots and lots of anecdotal evidence, lots of stories about how they discovered a leak in their neighbour's pipes and so on and so forth. But there are always other possible explanations there.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is set up conditions which would rule out any of those other explanations. But then we get down to the very fundamental, basic issue: can the dowsers actually do what they think they can do?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's 4. I think it's 4.
So should we see how well you've done? This is actually sand.
In that case, I can't do this.
This is the waters in number 5. Sand again. This time, guess was bin number 3. And this time you're correct. That's water. That's sand.
Yes, we've actually got 2 possible answers.
Final trial, it's sand again, am I correct?
In that case, I'm 100% wrong again.
Well, you got 1 right out of 6, which is what we'd expect by chance. So far, they're performing pretty much in line with mean chance expectation.
Okay.
In other words, guesswork.
Yeah.
So no one has scored more than 2 hits out of 6.
3.
3.
the people you've been testing, do they understand why they're being put through the double-blind procedure?
I think once we've explained it to them, then they appreciate why someone who is perhaps sceptical or doubtful about their claims would see that that was necessary. What's interesting is it doesn't actually tend to dent their confidence at all.
Which suggests that they're completely sincere.
I think they are completely sincere.
Yes.
And that they're typically very, very surprised when we run them through a series of trials and actually say at the end of the day, well, your performance is no better than would expect just on the basis of guesswork. And then what typically happens is they'll make up all kinds of reasons, some might say excuses, as to why they didn't pass that particular test.
I feel the whole test is wrong.
I'm shocked beyond words that this has happened. But I did say from the outset, couldn't we just sort out some grey blocks and some scaffold boards so that I can walk above it, which is what I would routinely do and I've done for 40 years.
Who knows where or what bottles were in what tubs.
That's the whole point, isn't it? That's the whole point.
But if you understand dowsing like I do, you'll understand that everything leaves an image.
This state of denial is extraordinary. Even when confronted with hard fact, these dowsers prefer not to face up to truth, but retain their delusion.
I love it.
That was a great test. I remember watching that several times, and I think it's good. They had the double-blind test. They're sending them in there. They're talking to them. I like the fact that they're not being confrontational. They're not being like, ha ha, we told you so. It's, why do you think it didn't work? It's a conversation. Stop being sick, Dave. But I do like how they presented that and how they went about that test.
I do too.
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting to see the people admit themselves that, I was 100% wrong. I guess under this condition, I can't do it. But one of them, the one guy, he's just, the test is all wrong. Jeez, okay, whatever. Okay, well then, what would be the right test, buddy?
I love his response. Like, who knows where the water and the sand is? Like, that's the point.
That's the point.
That sand had a high water content, obviously.
Yes.
Threw them off.
So what do you think the reasoning is here? Is this like an example of the backfire effect? Is it like they have this idea, or cognitive dissonance, where they have this idea, like they know they can do it, they were tested, it was right in front of their face that no, they could not do what they say they could do, and now they have this conflict. That's what I see when they're struggling. It looks like they're struggling in their head, and like, oh shit, what happened here? Right. What do you think, Dave? What do you think?
I think they're struggling with the fact that in their mind and outside of this test situation, in their supposed real world, they've succeeded so many times that this negative test, while it does conflict with their view, that they just, like that one guy said, there's something wrong with the test. He just doesn't believe this is the right way to test it, because I think there's been affirmation across the board, and they came into a controlled study, which, let's face it, these people are most likely going to doubt researchers and scientists anyway. Even though it was set up well and it looked like it was ran well and they were not confrontational, it was actually it looked like a great study. Seen it, I've read it, I've read about it, seen it in video. It makes it even better. It's a very friendly atmosphere, so they should have performed okay.
Yeah.
But I think they're probably thinking this is not a real world situation. And that one woman even alluded to that. She's like, well, normally I walk over the things, and I wasn't able to do that here.
Right.
I guess if you wanted to be really smart, if these people were truly that smart, they could have said, hey, how do we know there isn't water under where you're doing this test? And I'm picking that up. Yeah. At least to me, that'd be a valid comment and thing to talk about. But I don't know. It's confirmation bias, obviously. I'm not sure it's backfire effect. I didn't see anybody strongly digging in and saying, I can do this, damn it, I can do this. I think it's more of, this does not jive with what I've seen in a real world situation and what people tell me I can do. And we all know people that claim these abilities just don't have a whole lot of respect or trust or care for scientists and their testing.
Right.
But they were all nice about it. I mean, the one woman, she was right. She's like, I was wrong 100% of the time. Okay.
She was even wrong about that because she got one right.
I mean, sometimes you could sit there and go, wow, you didn't even get one right out of 6. You should have gotten something by chance. What are you purposefully missing? I mean, what the hell are you doing? So it's interesting. I don't know. I think it doesn't matter how many times you test them. If they fail, they're going to go right back to doing and thinking what they did before because they've been affirmed so many times in the real world.
Right. John's got a question. So is it the rod or the diviner where the power lies? And from what I've read, it, like one of these reports, and again, I think it's the one. No, I think it's the Geological Survey from 1917. They get into talking about it didn't matter. Oh, and you know what? No, it's that it's the book where Tim's picture there stems from the 1596, something like that. Damn it. Where is it? 1556. The D-Ray Metallica. They talk about it and they describe the dowsing, but they also describe that it didn't matter what they used. It didn't matter if it was a forked branch. It didn't matter what kind of branch it was from what tree. They could use a straight branch or a curved branch. It didn't matter. That it was somehow in the person, and the person was picking it up, because there was an argument that it didn't work for people that didn't believe it worked. So when they picked up the stick and walked over the same spots, it didn't work, and they wanted to know why. And the explanation by the dowsers was that basically it's something inside the person that's blocking the rays. So you can't get the rays, therefore you cannot use the dowsing rods. So that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Tim?
Well, I think going back to the video, I think when he said that the people actually believe that they can do what they say they can do means a lot to how they responded. And actually that might be kind of a big punch to the gut, you know, at that moment, to like walk in really believing that you're going to ace this. I mean, you heard, I think it was the gentleman that said at the beginning, you know, I expected to get 6 out of 6, and he got 1. So I don't know if it's backfire. I don't know if it's confirmation bias, but I think it's some type of a self-preservation of your beliefs at that point. I mean, who knows how it went when they went back? I mean, maybe they did go back to their farm and try to see if they could do it, and you know, maybe they just kind of reaffirmed it and did it on their land or did it on someone else's land. But I don't know. So going to that question, I guess, I think it's the belief that people have that they can do it. Yeah. It reminds me of superstitious behavior. And, you know, that just means like if you pick up a stick or a twig and you walk across until you think that there's water somewhere, and you dig and there's actually water underneath of it, somebody that saw it, or if you believe that, then the next time someone asks you to help find water, you're going to go back and find a twig, and you're going to do it again, just because, you know, the random success, superstitious behavior is just wanting to do the same thing exactly you did before to get the same results that you did last time. And I think maybe not any power, but the belief and the ability to make something happen resides in the person.
So yeah, anything to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, anything I've read, they don't attribute anything special to the device. At least none of the recent discussions I looked at. They give a couple possible mechanisms. They say it could be. They say it's the person, more or less. So the person either is picking up on a small change in the electromagnetic field somehow, and then they're either consciously or subconsciously turning the rods or the dowsing apparatus to pick it up. Somebody else speculated it's a piezoelectric effect that they're picking up on. Another person said they're somehow they've developed the ability, depending on what they're looking for, they can scan the environment and see very subtle things, even subconsciously. Like we talked about water or grave sites or something, you might be able to pick up very subtle little differences in what's out in the environment, and then they turn them themselves. Then the other idea is people just simply have some sort of psychic ability that they don't understand, and that's how they're doing it. But all the testing, when they took away all the potential mechanisms that would lead to doing it naturally, where they do it double blind, there was one study where people were actually performing well, but then when they wiped out any environmental signs, like looking for water, like looking for different vegetation types they think they were picking up on, when they leveled it and did that, or did the experiment we just watched, they performed poorly. So there's a lot of proposed mechanisms, but when it's controlled for, they don't perform.
Right.
I think they do.
A lot of what I was reading in the older literature agreed with you. It was more or less the authors believed that the people were picking up on visual cues, environmental cues, and saying, "Oh, you know what? I know a little bit about this, and that looks like it's a good area." And they go over there, and the twig goes down, and they dig and they find it. Real quick, Carol's question here about when they say they find water, is there a parameter like 30 feet down? And I've read both, where people say they can't tell depth, and other people say that depending on how the twig bounces, like the method that I was reading about, the method of what is it? Beets. The method of beets. How many beets told you how far down it was? So how many? If you're holding, because they held the stick like this, I don't know why, but they held it like this, and if it went down like 5 times, that was like, it was like 50 meters or 50 feet, something like that. And that correlated with a measurement. But other people couldn't tell you how far down it was. It was just dig until you find water. And a lot of these places, it's going to happen.
No kidding.
Like I can do that out front. It's not a big deal. You got something, Dave?
I was going to say, the idea with the electromagnetic fields, even if, how are they picking them up? And if there's such small differences, and you're awash, even in the old days when we didn't have all these electronic devices and power lines everywhere, there's geomagnetic fields that vary depending on where you are on the earth. You just walk around and they vary. Right. So I'm not quite sure how they would be able to pick up such a small change that would cue you in on something below you. Now, there's recent studies that show very small changes in the orientation and the strength of a geomagnetic field. Your brain does pick it up, but are you able to consciously know or even subconsciously know that you're picking up that signal? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not, which would say, okay, then how do you figure that out and get it to the twigs and make them turn and do what they're supposed to do? I mean, I just don't see how it would really work. There's just so much noise in the environment to even explain how that would work.
Yeah, I mean, you just being on right now, I know sitting in this chair, I am being bombarded by different EMF. I have EMF from screens and air conditioner, the fans, the lights, everything. So how do you differentiate between that shit and potential water under the ground?
Yeah.
What if you're wearing your cell phone? That just totally screwed you up. I wanted to get in a little history here because there's at least one bit of history associated with dowsing rods that I wanted to address, because I've seen this a lot when I researched it years ago, and when I started researching it again, it came up, and I'm going to share this with you. Let's see. Let me get this right. There we go. So popping up. So this is from the American Society of Dowsers, established in 1961. And what you see here is a cave drawing, this part here, but the accompanying text says, in this vein, in 1949, a party of French explorers, while searching for evidence of lost civilizations in the Atlas Mountains of North Africa, stumbled upon a massive system of caverns known as the, here we go, Tassili Cave. I hate it when I start getting these words. It's going to screw me up. Wherein many of the walls were covered with marvelous prehistoric paintings. Among the many fascinating wall murals, not only did they locate an art gallery devoted exclusively to the depiction of spacecrafts and ETs.
Excellent.
I'm sorry. Hold on a second. It's funny. They also found a remarkable, huge wall painting of a dowser holding a forked branch in his hand, searching for water, surrounded by a group of admiring tribesmen. These wall murals were carbon dated and found to be at least 8,000 years old. So let me see if I can. I think I can enlarge this for you. The picture that they're promoting. Let me see if I can do this. Again, my mouse is messing up. So that's what it's looking like. They're saying that this here is the dowsing rod. It's being held by this guy, and he's searching for water. So, first of all, the photographer in me, it comes right out and says, what you're seeing here, this is not part of the cave drawing. This is a person that moved in front. This is long exposure photography. Someone was standing there and moved in front of them, and you get what's called motion blur from somebody walking through the scene. And I also want to bring up a close-up of this image, which is that. This is actually what it looks like. And if you look closely, it's not a forked branch. It is a bow and arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is the arrow. Here's the bow. And then there's the string going across. So
the arrow lands in where the water is. Come on.
Yes.
I shot an arrow in the air.
He gets an electromagnetic shock and he drops it. Oh, that's where it is. So that's what I wanted to address, because I see this constantly brought up as proof that dowsing is like at least 8,000 years old and it was used to find water by tribes and all this shit, but it's not. This is a misrepresentation. And this is exactly what it is. And you can still see this today. And there's plenty. You can go on archaeology sites and they explain it. It's called the Archers of Tinbakteca. And I butchered that, but that's what it's called because he's an archer, not a dowser.
Yeah.
So, all right, there we go. Back to normal. All right.
That was really cool, actually.
It was. I thought that was really cool because it was like, it's part of the history, and you hear about like Egyptians and the Asian culture would have it and all the, and it's like, all right, let me find, show me examples, and this is the primary example that would come up. In addition, I mean, the picture that Tim has, that's a picture that I've seen. That's a woodcut, woodcut that was made. But I think that particular picture, that's a popular one, but there's no attributing text to it. So we don't know who made it and exactly what was being searched for at the time. But there's later cuts. There's later carvings that come up. Do I have them? I don't think I have them. But like in the Metallica book that I mentioned earlier.
For what?
The Metallica. You got to do it, dude. You got to do it.
It's a rule. It's a rule. You have to do it.
They had wood carvings as well, showing dowsers in a field, but a fertile field. I mean, it's like, it's almost like ridiculous because it looks so lush and plentiful that I'm sure they're going to find water. So not a big deal.
Well, in the original picture that they had with the bow, but it looked, they were trying to say it was a dowsing rod. When you actually zoomed in on that, there was a picture of I don't know, an animal. It looked like it, and it was scaled to look like it was in the distance, which would fit in with a hunt.
Right.
It looks like if they were going to draw, it was a dowsing rod that you would imagine maybe they would have drawn water next to it. It just kind of it just seems to fit in the picture that there's a bow and then there's an animal in the distance.
So let me see. Bring it back up. So there is, yes, they're in the background there. Ah, wait, no, come on. My mouse is not. I don't know if the batteries are going in it, but it's not behaving. So yeah, I mean that in the background there, there is a depiction of an animal, and if you look, if there's other pictures, you can look it up. It's really cool. I'll try to put the link in the chat room. But there's other designs, other drawings back there that show there's other animals. They are on a hunt. There's other members of the tribe there on a hunt. So there is no dowsing. There is no water involved. It's just the people that are hunting. That's exactly what they're doing. So, all right, moving on. So dowsing, and you guys can jump in, what if you have other topics too, but we talked about water and minerals and pretty much reading the signs. You can pretty much judge if you're schooled in that area, if you're educated in that area. And that's what a lot of these surveys that I looked up say. If you have some education in this line of work, you can pretty much spot a potential area, or at least get close enough. And there's no dowsing needed. You can pick it out and just say, oh, you know what? I think over there, and use other ways to do it. But in modern times, especially in the early 90s, I think, and then 2000s, there were a couple devices that came into play, which were making electronic versions, or allegedly electronic versions, of dowsing rods. And this is when it comes a little serious. We get a little serious here because this falls into the category of what's the harm. And I'm going to show you some pictures here as soon as I get it up on screen. So let me see, where'd it go? There it is. All right, I'm going to share the screen. Sorry, guys. I'm not prepared. Well, I'm prepared, but my mouse is not listening to me. So this device, which is not blowing up for me. Oh, wait, there it is. This was sold to various military from different countries to military as a bomb detector. And depending on what explosives and or weapons that you wanted to find, those cards that you see, you would slip them into the device that allegedly read and I guess programmed it for that. Some of these are, let's see, I think this one is the ADE 651, and this costs about $1,600. There is actually no moving parts. There's no electronic parts in this whatsoever. People would hold the handle, the top of the handle up here. They would hold it steady and walk around the car, and the antenna would actually go out. It would extend because it's a telescoping antenna. It would come out and it would just wave back and forth. And allegedly it would point if a bomb was detected, if you had the right card, in the reader there. But these were going for between $1,600 and $2,000 per unit. And they sold a lot of them. And unfortunately, they did not work because, again, there are no moving parts in these. But the belief alone sold them. And people died because they missed the bombs that were in car bombs and stuff like that. It's horrible. When you start researching it, there's a lot more to it and a lot more that I really want to get into with this show. But this is one example.
I've seen that. I've read about that.
It's so bad, and I think there's more.
That's government bid pricing right there. Damn.
Yeah, it is
horrible. There is one, and I thought I had I did have the video up earlier. Oh, wait, here's one. Oh, here's in use. Let me see if I can get that up. Oh, come on. I feel like Matt. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud?
Cut the music. We'll be back.
I've seen that. I saw the video where they described the selling of those. I think it was with one of the James Randi videos.
Yeah.
James Randi did a video. So that's one. That's another model. That's a GT200. And it had a similar design. When you see this. So in the bottom there, you see the bottom is, which is wider. That's where you put the card in that would read what kind of bomb. And this is called a sensor card. And it would read what kind of materials you were looking for, what kind of explosives. And again, these were sold. Randy actually took one apart. He did a demonstration. He was able to get a hold of one after the fact. So the whole thing has been blown over. The guy that actually made some of these devices was arrested. So he was able to get a hold of one of them, and they took it apart, and it had a seal around it. And get this, the seal was hot glue. So from a glue gun, hot glue gun. They took it apart, and wait a minute, I have my notes here. So there were two models. The main model, there was a circuit board inside of it, and it had a ribbon cable. The ribbon cable was attached to the circuit board. The other end was attached to nothing. Nothing. Like it wasn't attached to anything. It had an antenna on it, but it just came off and didn't touch anything. The circuit board, when they researched it, they found out that it was from a 30-year-old television remote. That's what was put inside, and it was hot glued inside the case.
Wow.
And then the other one, there was a different model that had a circuit board from a old refrigerator, and they didn't give me the year from it, but it was from a refrigerator. So I was like, God damn. And I'm laughing, and I don't mean to laugh. It's so ridiculous. But these were actually put into practice. They were put into use by different military at checkpoints. And the way they were exposed is that a bomb got through and it killed people. So the owner was brought up on charges when they found out there was nothing in them. There was absolutely nothing in them.
Damn.
All right.
Unreal.
All right. What do you guys got left? Do you have any other notes?
I had just on the belief of it, an interesting going back to the story, the psychology with the lady that does the dowsing for people in California. One of the things that she talked about was a developer, an excavator, and a person that digs wells uses her, and she kind of threw that forward in her interview about how to lend credibility to her claims that she can find it. So this person actually hires her. The author or the writer of the report found the contractor and talked to him. And he said, he was like, look, he goes, I hire her because, let's see, her conviction is important in the foothills. Basically saying like her reputation is kind of strong there. And he says the crevice waters makes his jobs difficult, and clients are scared by the costs and tell him to quit digging before he can hit water. So having her there saying there's water there gives them enough security to let him keep getting until he gets to a water base, and we'll get them water. He also said somewhere in there, he was like, look, I'm not trying to, hurt her, discredit her. He said, a lot of times I don't know where water is myself, but reading between the lines, I heard that he probably has a lot of care for the people that are out there and knows that they don't have a lot of money, but also knows if they just let him dig, he'll find water. And so he will hire her. He will bring her on the job site and let her walk around. And when she says there's water here, he just digs. And her presence will give the landowners security that they're going to spend money that's going to find water, and he gets to actually dig down to find the water. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing where we often hear people say, it never dawned on me that a credibility source might be used in that way. We hear people say, well, this water company uses my services to find water. So, or this person, they hire me to do this. Well, I guess other companies could have alternative reasons to actually have them on site and help. And I thought it was pretty interesting to me, just the psychology that he could see. I don't know if he knows what he did, but he certainly figured it out in practice that having her there not necessarily makes him more money. Well, I guess it does, but it enables him to get water to the farmers that need it.
Interesting.
There's definitely a lot of belief in this. When I put up a video a while ago, and it's my testing device. So I've had this for a while. I meant to bring this up earlier, but and I did take this with me last weekend to Gettysburg for the conference, and I had it out and I was using it, and I let people use it, and it's amazing when they come up, because people that are true believers, they really think they can use the dowsing rods to communicate with spirits, because that's at the paranormal conference. No one uses it to find water. When I post videos online, that's when I get a lot of people that claim that they are engineers and they've used it to find water and power lines for decades, and that they can absolutely prove 100% they can do it. To which point I refer them to the II or the CFIIG with their $250,000 challenge. Like, hey, go show me, because if you can pass that test, I get $5,000 out of it. So I'm all for you doing it, dude. I'm totally backing you up. Go do it. But at ghost conferences, it's a different story. They believe that if they're using the rods, they're asking questions of spirits, and the spirits answer them, the yes or no. And years I've been using this. I've been setting it up, and this is the thing that Mitch Silverstein made for me. So I've set it up. I let people try it all the time, and they can't understand why it doesn't work. They try to figure out, but I think it goes back to that confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance, where they believe wholeheartedly that it works. But when you take away their control to make it work, specifically moving your hands or wrists, and it doesn't work, they struggle with that belief. They struggle with like, what's going on now? But I continue to use this, and just not to be that ha kind of thing, but just to show like, hey, maybe it's something else. And that leads me into another test that I've done. Not only that I've done on people, but I do when I see dowsers put up videos of themselves, dowsing or asking questions, where you speed up the video. Once you speed it up, you see the hand movements. They're more pronounced. And that's something I keep telling people to do. Like, check it out, because maybe you're not doing what you think you're doing. Maybe you're not talking to spirits. You're not influencing the rods. And then for the people that claim to be picking up water, and I still have people, my neighbor, well, a former neighbor, lived across the street, swore he could do it. And I had him come over. I turned the hose on. He was looking at it. He knew exactly where it was. Still could not make the rods cross. And I mean, that alone is mind-blowing. Like, you can see it. You have the opportunity to fake it, but you didn't, which I appreciate. He was being honest, but it still didn't work for him. So I guess I have trouble. I struggle with why people hold on to that belief so strongly when they can test it over and over again and find that it doesn't work. And that's my opinion of it. It does not work. at all. I think it's a cool novelty. I think it's a interesting little metaphysical, cute thing. And I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be insulting, but it's cute. It's not real. It's cute, but that's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have, I think, when it comes to my notes. Yeah, I'm pretty much out of things to talk about. So
I have those very testing rods too from Mitch. I keep them in my office, and when people ask me what they are and I explain what they're for, and often it comes up about water dowsing. I love to get a cup of water and just balance them, and I'm just like, slide it all you want, slide all the water. I'm like, what about metals? Just put the metals under, like. Just to show, like, if they're going to find water and cross, then it looks like they would. Other than that, the other thing I was going to talk about, and it's just more side note than anything, is I learned a new word or a new maybe phrase or a thing, and that's something called unstable equilibrium. Dave's probably heard about it, but what I learned about that, and it relates to dowsing rods, is exactly what you're talking about. And it's basically to refer to something in unstable equilibrium means that you have something that is in balance, but it's very easily moved out of balance. And the amount of force it takes to move something out of balance is greatly amplified by the results that you get.
That's not how it works.
Sorry, that was me.
No,
I was like trying to do something really quiet, but again, the mouse was not cooperating.
So I like that. I like the word unstable equilibrium because that's basically me every morning until coffee.
I think it's all of us every morning. But yeah, I mean, and when it comes to like water dowsing, I've tried that, and I actually have a video, but I can't get to it because, again, I'm having such bad mouse problems. It's just not listening, and I don't want to click on the wrong thing. But I literally took this rig and the rods out of there, and I went to Cape May, in New Jersey, and I walked. I held the rods and I walked into the ocean. And I mean, if anything's going to detect water, I think that would do it. And it didn't work.
Didn't work.
And I really tried. I was like, come on, Cross. Come on, baby. No, it didn't work.
I set them up on my desk. I let people use cups of water. Then they'll have gold rings. I'm like, run a metal underneath of it. We someone wanted to see what would happen, which I thought was really cool. If you put a cell phone under it and called it, I was like, well, nothing's going to happen. Then they put their cell phone. I was like, shit, is something going to happen? I was like, well, I don't know. Let's find out. It was kind of cool. And then nothing happened. I was like, yeah, I knew that was nothing's going to happen. But there for a second, I was like,
that's fun though. That is fun because once in a while I get that too, where I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen.
It's like,
this is interesting. This is fun.
I called it. I was like, no way, a cell phone's not going to make them move. And then when we got it set up, I was kind of like, shit, should I film this?
Damn right. All right. So if you guys, do you have anything else? Because I will end with, I have a quote that I'll read to sum up pretty much my ending. So how about we wrap it up? We're actually over an hour. We're going to stay within almost our time frame. So Dave, I'll let you go first.
All right. I will answer Carol's question to make my summary. She asks, do I have anything in defense of dowsing rods? No. There was no study that I came across that showed they worked when it was properly set up and they took out any environmental cues or any way for people to somehow either consciously or subconsciously obtain the information through normal means that would allow them to consciously or subconsciously move the rods themselves. So there doesn't seem to be anything special about it. It doesn't seem to be any psychic power to it. electromagnetism, I doubt it. I don't see how people would pick that up in the sea of noise that's out there. So I didn't come across anything that argues that, well, there's stuff out there that argues it works, right? There's shit studies, but when you look at the quality studies that have been peer reviewed and published, there's not one that says it works. And typically I can at least find one that supports something, but there's nothing out there. So do I think they work? I think they work in as so much as somebody who has acquired some sort of skill in identifying some environmental features consciously or subconsciously, and they're moving them. They're just doing it naturally. They may not know they're doing it, but that's what they're doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, that's exactly where I came after reading a lot about it. Was, do they work? I mean, define how you mean by work. Like, can someone, I just feel like someone that's been doing it for a long time, and either like they've said on a less than conscious level or even consciously can just identify different parts of the ground just from life skill itself, and be able to do it without knowing that they're doing it or purposefully. I didn't know about the study, which I thought was really interesting, that they leveled the ground so there couldn't be any physical or visible cues. And that was really interesting. I wish I would have come across that. Because at least I think partly it kind of lends to the explanation that people either less than conscious or consciously are taking visual cues to find the water. So can it work? Like in a global sense, can someone say, I'm going to walk across your field and find water with a stick? Probably. But is it due to the stick? No. Is it due to some force? I think it's just due to someone's experience, probably in the past, of knowing the lay of the land, knowing they can probably look at different valleys, how the hillsides roll. Different trees suck up different amounts of water, and they probably can look at vegetation and take a really good guess at where a water table would still have plenty of water in it. So maybe that way it could work, but something on a more than a paranormal or supernatural explanation, I don't think it works.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to end this with, this is from the Department of Interior, United States Geological Survey, 1917, by Arthur Ellis. And this is the conclusion to his report on dowsing rods, divining rod. It is by no means true that all persons using a forked twig or some other device for locating water or other mineral are intentional deceivers. Some of them are doubtless men of good character and benevolent. Oh my God.
You're not even drinking.
Benevolent intentions. However, as anything that can be deeply veiled in mystery affords a good opportunity for swindlers, there can be no reasonable doubt that many of the large group of professional finders of water, oil, or other minerals who take pay for their services or for the sale of their instruments are deliberately defrauding the people, and that the total amount of money they obtain is large. To all inquiries, the United States Geological Survey therefore gives the advice not to expend any money for the services of any water witch or for the use or purchase of any machine or instrument devised for locating underground water or other minerals. That is it. That's the summary for the report. And that was over 100 years ago. They determined this. Think about that. 1917, they determined this, and nothing has really changed. The only thing is the belief just keeps going on. It stays there because, like we see with everything else, with Ouija boards and ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs, all this stuff, the belief persists despite the research, despite what is presented, despite the test results. It persists because people want it to persist, not because it actually works. And just remember that the next time you see this. And if you see somebody using it, remember the question. Always question it. It's okay to question. That's how we learn. And as for dowsing rods, they just do not seem to work. And I'm saying it like that because I don't know 100%. I've done some tests myself, but according to everything else, I'm convinced they don't work. So that's all I can say about that. So with that said, Tim, you got anything coming up?
No.
Hey, Dave, you got anything coming up?
No.
Oh my God, you have a podcast, bitch. I know you got something.
Yeah, we're not keep saying we're going to keep doing it. We just don't have time with work, so we'll get back to it. I'll come up with something next week to advertise for it. So
let's see. I got a few things. On Monday, I will be a guest on Dark Sun Rising podcast. I was on it a couple months ago. It was pretty cool. We had fun. I honestly think they didn't realize how much I talk. So they had a list of questions. I don't think we got halfway through it because I wouldn't shut up. So I got that. September 25th is the Para-Unity Conference in Woodbridge, New Jersey. That's still on. I'll be out there. My wife will be out there with her Lucky Tiki Creations. I'll have my Skeptical Help booth. Although, because it's held at a school, there is no alcohol allowed. So I'm pretty upset about that. But I'm still going. And then October 9th is the Selma Mansion Psychic Fair in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Donna will be setting up a table there. I won't be, but I'll be helping her set up. So I will be around to harass all the psychics at the Psychic Fair. Just giving you a heads up right now. That's about it right now. There is another project that I'm working on, which is like a secret project because it's not finalized yet, but it's going to, if it works out, it should be working mid-October-ish. It'll be out, and I'll be able to say some more. So with that said, I'm going to try to get over to my video here and try not to do a Tim Vickers.
I will not be alone if you pull this off.
Who's up next week?
Tim.
Yes. All right, cool. All right, Tim's up next week. We will see you next Saturday. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.
Go.